Now, before we get into this video, I just want to mention that despite the title's claim, I am in no way saying everyone else's attempts at depicting William Afton in FNaF analog horror are bad. I mean, I got a whole other video planned where I'm going to talk about the other version of William who casually deep-fried a baby. But we're not there yet, so hold your horses. For now, we're going to speak about this guy. Or rather, the guy who's mostly based on this guy. To dumb it down and save us an hour of exposition, Battington originally made FNaF VHS tapes that were direct remakes of the OG Scrimpus McGimpus tapes. Then there was a whole drama that started because of certain posts that were made, and you know, the fact that Scrimpus got outed as a freaking pedophile. Still really ironic that the guy behind the criminal meme turned out to be a criminal himself. Go figure. Moving on, Battington dodged that bullet of drama cesspool and made his own timeline where he took the full reins of how the story would go. And my god, he cooked harder than a chef in a 6-star restaurant. If you're interested in seeing the full tapes alongside the original content he's made, I strongly recommend you go watch his own videos instead of this one if you haven't already. They are just that good. He's one of the greatest, if not the best, creators of FNaF VHS tapes on YouTube in my opinion. And the main reason why I think Battington deserves to be called one of the best analog horror creators is his original depictions of William in the tapes. Now, usually all we get of Willie in VHS tapes are distorted pictures and the occasional Springtrap appearance, but Battington, oh lord, Battington took a full advantage of how terrifying the concept of a child murderer dressed in a seemingly innocent family-friendly costume can be. Like the other animatronics on Battington's roster, Spring Bonnie got their own vintage redesign, and holy shit, just look at this thing. In daylight lighting, it looks remotely like something a child would like, you know, the smile and ears and everything, but in dark and dim lighting, the thing looks like it crawled right out of someone's nightmares. The smile, the pose is just looking slightly off and inhuman, the eyes, dear lord, the soulless eyes. What's impressive with this depiction of the Spring Bonnie costume is that in the tapes we rarely see William even moving while in it. He's either stalking someone in a hallway or standing completely still in the dark with a knife ready to reenact his favorite Terrifier 3 scene. And oh boy, it gets even better when you get a gander at the Springtrap version of this suit. In Late Night at Fazbear Frights, we get a good look at the withered and torn design. Unlike the canon Springtrap, this one actually feels like some guy found it in an abandoned pizzeria and decided to make it a horror attraction because money. The mask even seems to be more rubbery rather than metallic, which fits with the idea that it is supposed to double as both a suit and an animatronic. To fully encapsulate how good of a depiction this is, I want to cover a few of the tapes that this version of William has starred in with this suit. Now, let's start with the shortest one, yet one that's still effective at ruining your chances at sleeping peacefully. Bunny 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 is a very simple tape to start with. It has no camera changes, no movement, or even dialogue aside from the song that plays throughout the majority of the runtime. The scene shows Fredbear silently gazing at whoever is holding the camera in a remote room, likely being inside Fazbear's family diner from the design of the walls and the presence of an unwithered version of Fredbear. The other three objects visible are a chair against the open door, a large bear plush on the floor, and a poster of what looks like the normal Freddy promoting another Fazbear location. Nothing changes as the song continues to play during the video. Nobody moves or even twitches as we sit watching the video continue to play out. This is how Battington creates a sense of dread in a lot of his videos. He avoids jump scares, glitches, and other distractions whenever necessary. The silence or quiet ambience creates an odd sense of calm that makes you uncomfortable due to expecting horrific things on the get-go. The lack of camera movement really adds to that dread, as you're forced to only take in what the still camera shot is showing you, and nothing new. Your main focus is mostly taken up by Fredbear, obviously, seemingly the main threat to focus on here. The song even makes it seem as if it isn't even Fredbear at all, and instead is Spring Bonnie. The head's top being cut off by the door frame, as if hiding bunny ears, even baits the viewer into believing that the animatronic in the doorway is the rabbit you're expecting to appear. The viewer's mind would also have likely noticed the chair propped up near the door by now, and put together the theory that Fredbear is the danger and whomever is holding the camera wanting to keep the bear out of the room and away from them. Unfortunately, when the song ends, we're shown what we truly should have been afraid of the entire time. The picture barely even has to brighten slightly for us to finally see William standing in the corner, already in the room holding a very long knife. That's where the tape ends, and the fact that there's no true jump scare to it is what makes this tape a masterpiece. If you have a good eye, there's a chance you could have noticed him earlier in the video, but it's likely you didn't due to focusing on the other visible objects. An amazing trick of the mind and eyes that plays on the dread that was building the entire tape. What makes this tape especially creepy is the implication that the music was coming from either Fredbear or William himself. If it was coming from Fredbear, there is perhaps a theory that it was attempting to warn the viewer of William's presence the only way he really could, with the song. This is a concept that'll appear in the next tape we're going to take a look at. But this tape still remains a good example of how Battington has perfected ways to keep the viewer on edge and instill a feeling of constant dread and unease in them. Anyways, on to the next tape, which is much longer and has a lot more to unpack. The Case of Edward Morris is easily one of my all-time favorite FNaF VHS tapes, right up there next to Freddy Jr.'s Origins, which we will be covering in another video. Just want to make that piece of trivia clear. Running at over 7 minutes in length, there's a lot more to take in here than the last tape. The basic story of this one is simple, yet one of a lot of other tapes tell. A person breaks into a pizzeria, sees all the haunted stuff, gets scared, and tries to escape with varying degrees of success depending on the tape creator's sense of humor, or in dark humor. But this one leans way more into the dread aspect as mentioned before. The person recording this time, we actually have a name. The recorder is Edward Morris, a 15-year-old kid who gets peer pressured by his friends into breaking into the pizzeria to get evidence the place is haunted like a Scooby-Doo episode. Ah, friend groups. Glad I was never part of one. Most of the tape consists of Edward investigating the place and noticing the animatronics and how bad of shape they're in, with flies even being visible swarming around them. Lovely detail, and if you're a FNaF fan, I don't even have to explain why the flies are choosing the animatronics to swarm. If you know, you know. There's a lot of dread within this tape. Normally you would be unsuspecting and expect one of the, animatronics to do Edward in. The obvious answer. But, thanks to the thumbnail showing a certain obvious yellow bunny is due to show up at some time, the entire tape the viewer will likely be on edge waiting for William to make his appearance. Once again, a genius way of instilling dread on those watching. Everyone knows he'll show up. The question is just when and where. We then get a nice little spook when Bonnie springs to life and poses in a specific spot in the hallway, just between a corner section. Much like any other horror movie protagonist, Edward decides not to take the clearly haunted animatronic as assigned to run the hell away, who instead approaches Bonnie in confusion on why he moved there in the first place. And then, our dread gets its payoff.
Stranger. Stranger. Stranger.
I want to mention how much I love how Bonnie points William out to Edward here. Bonnie doesn't attack William, doesn't screech or go hostile or twitch violently. He just points and repeats the word stranger. It's almost a direct reflection of the criminal scene in Scrimpus McGimpus tapes, the pedophile. It really gets the point across that these are just kids stuck in these suits because of the man standing mere feet away from his newest victim. One detail I noticed while editing this is that when the light cuts out in this scene, you can see William slightly moving away for a single frame, getting ready for the chase. I just love that detail. I don't even know if it's an actual detail or if it's just a editing mistake. The tape then shows Edward desperately running away from William. It goes too fast to notice on the first viewing, but there's some rather disturbing details that are somewhat brushed over during this chase. Firstly, as Edward makes it to the arcade section, he turns back to see if he's hopefully lost the rabbit, only to see William has easily kept up with him and is just patiently watching the boy run. The pose that William chooses to stand in doesn't change once throughout the entire chase, in an almost mocking way, like the mascot is wishing for a hug that Edward would never be released from. Then, while Edward's hiding between arcade cabinets, you can see when William runs past, his head is turned in the exact direction Edward is. He knows that he's hiding in there and is likely just messing with him for the sheer fun of it. William likely already knows that there's no way Edward will possibly be able to escape the building in time, so he's just toying with his prey, much like he probably did with his previous victims, what the previous tapes imply. The last shot we get of this chase are of William still silently watching Edward try and escape through the front, only for it to be sealed shut, likely by William when he entered the place to follow Edward. Then we're treated to a first-person attack by William. It's subtle, but you can notice one of the eyes on the suit is knocked loose. There's two possible reasons for this. One, William was in such a rush to get the suit on to enjoy murdering Edward that he didn't fasten it tightly enough. Or two, that Edward had knocked the eye loose while attempting to push and fight back to no avail. Either or, both are disturbing details to put in. The way William is attacking here is another great yet horrific detail, attacking almost identically to how the animatronics in the games attack the various night guards. Animalistic and feral, obviously showing William's enjoyment of this act without any dialogue or even showing the face under the mask. Speaking of said mask, there's another small detail that can be seen if you pause during the attack scene. You can notice patches of stained blood near the eye holes. No idea if this is from a previous murder or even a spring lock failure that happened to somebody who formerly wore the suit that William's wearing now. Now, that is something that was depicted in a non-existent video, but again, that's a topic for another day. After a cryptic yet cleverly worded poem from Withered Bonnie, we discover that William shoved Edward's body into the ventilation system, which was discovered after the smell of his rotting corpse was found an unknown number of days later. The tape ends on a warning to avoid being anywhere you shouldn't be alone, especially in a place like Freddy's. This ending part is kinda unsettling on a first viewing, merely because of the fact we get a warning about William's murders, and also we get yet another shot of the suit in this pose. This footage either came from the security cameras or from unseen footage on Edward's camera. The former theory really brings some unsettling implications of the possibility of William tampering with the security camera footage, deleting it as he sees fit, but also purposefully leaving certain bits untouched that don't give any hint on his true identity. William is definitely depicted here as the type of person to enjoy the spotlight of his slaughters, while also being able to disappear from said spotlight whenever he wishes. Like I said, good shit for FNaF horror fans to gorge on. On to our last tape that we'll be looking at today, once again a short one, but one that shows this version of William in endless suffering. So we're going out on a happy note! Ah, Fazbear Frights. Hearing that name brings me back to the good old days when I was once in a Minecraft roleplay series with that exact same name. Ah, pure nostalgic cringe at the things I said and did in that series. But nostalgia aside, this tape is another great example of Battington building off the fear that the FNaF series once gave people. The tape opens similarly to how Bunny 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 opened, but the music this time is different and much more distorted along with glitchy. The camera stays on a frame of Springtrap lurking around a hallway opening, gazing directly at whoever's holding the camera, implied to either be an employee of the building or a very unlucky visitor. Once again, this builds on the dread factor of the tape so much so that the normal viewer likely won't notice the face slowly appearing on the right on the first watch until it's in full view at the final frame of the shot. The scene changes to someone with a camera looking at the attraction set that Springtrap is a part of. Just want to mention, having him be depicted as actually part of the building's horror tour is an amazing creative choice that I'm honestly shocked it took this long for someone to implement into a VHS tape. Also, they gave him a knife apparently. Great idea giving that to a murderous possessed animatronic, guys. The exhibit seems to power on, and Springtrap echoes out a seemingly recorded voice line made for the tour.
Come a little closer, child. Let me stuff you in a suit.
This single line that is used here as part of the attraction implies a lot about the lore that Battington has laid out, which I'll go into more detail in a future video. But the basic idea of what this line implies is either William is always sentient within the suit and is purposely saying this, which doesn't make the most sense. The more likely theory is that this voice line was put in by the Fazbear Frights crew, and implies that they are both aware that William is a killer and that they know he was the one who shoved into the suit. Or the third possibility, that the crew knows that the spring body outfit was used to lure the missing children back during the 1980s. This third theory is backed up by the fact that in the previous video, the public broadcast directly showed that there was confirmed footage of William wearing the suit while hunting down Edward. Anyways, continuing on, shortly after the attraction is turned on, the lights flicker out and oh my god, what a shocker, the killer rabbit animatronic is gone. The door connecting to the room Springtrap was once in slowly begins to open, revealing the puppet behind it. Quick side tangent here, I really want to mention how good the puppet looks with this vintage design. Really adds to the feeling of something unnatural and haunting of his presence alone. Can't wait to see how the FNaF 2 movie handles the puppet. Anyways, then we get the shot everybody who's watched this tape in the past probably remembers very vividly. This frame right here can be used to sum up the basic premise of why I love Battington's take on the FNaF universe. The human scream mixed with the classic FNaF 3 jumpscare sound is just the chef's kiss here, and I like how the models has kept the melted purplish rotten face under the mask, still keeping it connected to its roots despite all the changes and improvements. Speaking of which, one thing that I mentioned earlier that I also love is the outside of the suit isn't metallic like the Canon Springtrap is. It's rubbery like the mascot suit would be in real life, while the inside is where all the sharp, broken metal is, puncturing the flesh and bone that was once William. Anyways, that's all I want to say about Battington's work in VHS tapes for now. And needless to say, go sub to him. He's long deserved 1 million subs, so go help him reach that goal, you know, if he ever returns. Also, make sure to subscribe to me if you enjoyed this essay, as I'll be doing plenty more in the near future. Take care, everyone. Don't get spring locked. Bye for now.